I was born and grew up in Mexico. So I studied in France, in Canada, in the States, in Cuba, and in Mexico. But since I was a kid, my grandmother was a painter, and so I used to sit and paint with her, and she always had me involved in some sort of, I guess, artistic medium and trying out different things. But once I graduated from high school, I moved to Paris. I would figure out if I wanted to paint or at least do painting for a while, just, you know, as a sabbatical year. And once I started doing it, I realized that I didn't want to. That's kind of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be doing something where I was expressing myself in some sort of artistic way. I applied to Parsons in New York. I got in, I came here, and I realized that I didn't necessarily want to only do painting. I started realizing that there was graphic design, that there was product design, that there was photography, and a million other things that I wasn't aware I could do. And after my first year at Parsons, I saw the senior exhibition for the photography majors, and I remember there were these 3 gigantic black and white prints of these faces, and they were dripping in water, and they were so amazing to me. I just remember standing in front of them and I couldn't stare. I just couldn't look away. And in a lot of my painting up to that point, I had drawn faces and getting very realistic with the portraits, and I was always attracted to paint or represent people, either their personalities or something in their eyes. And when I looked at the photographs, I felt like it didn't need anything else because that was the person and they had captured this one moment. And so I felt that something that I've been trying to do in in painting, could be achieved through photography. So I decided to take my first photo class my second year at Parsons, and everybody had all this, photography background, and they had already been studying it, and yeah, I'd never developed a single role. And I only took it as my elective, so I had it on the side. I was actually studying product design and graphic design at the time, and then eventually I started leaving all the other majors. I went into illustration for a little while. I do animation as well. Well, that's a thing that once I got to New York, I realized that there were a million things that I wanted to do. And then, of course, after I discovered photography, I discovered film. And I got into editing video, and then I got into motion graphics. Because that was the next step that I discovered after photography. I saw film as the thing that could capture some things that photography couldn't, because of the motion and what the motion can communicate. So I think that eventually I'll go more and more in that direction. Like the fact that I was from Mexico, I didn't think that it was representative or it didn't resemble any of the artwork that I had known came from Mexico. And as time went by, I started noticing my palette in my paintings or in my photographs. They started becoming very colorful and very, not all of them, but some of them definitely are. And people started noticing that I was from Mexico before I would tell them, and they would say that it was because of a certain style or a certain feeling or a certain color palette. And so I think that I started seeing little elements of my Mexican background coming in through the colors and the forms and the shapes and the lines, maybe. And then finally, with my last series about Mexico, it became all about my background, about my personal experience of having grown up in Mexico and being able to understand the country or the problems that we have. When I was creating this last series, I was thinking, I knew it was going to be a project that I was going to work on for a whole year. And I wanted it to be something that would be significant enough for me that I would be motivated throughout a whole year to keep on wanting to do it and put enough effort to produce something that I would really like in the end. And at the same time, a lot of conflict started happening in Mexico. There's always been a lot of conflict, but more so in this past year. And so I was actually flying to Mexico, and I was hearing all the news and everything that was happening, and I thought, well, why am I not doing something about this? Why am I not using these forms of expression to communicate something about my background? I only have the insight that I do. Nobody that is from any other culture will be able to look at what's going on the same way that I can, because I am from there. And I think in general, all professions whatever it is that we end up doing, even not doing anything, we're always communicating something. And we're putting something out into the world, and it's creating certain effects. And that is the communication that we're delivering to the world. And I feel that art is just another way that we do it. And it was my favorite kind, so I guess I picked it for that reason. I think that with art, with photography, with painting, with anything that is visual, sometimes it attracts people a little bit more. I think sometimes people can be lazy at not wanting to listen to something or read something, but a visual, it's always, it doesn't seem like it requires much effort, and I think that people are attracted to it. And a lot of people, I think, don't want to use film anymore because it's more expensive, it requires more time, especially if you're shooting commercially, then they want the results fast. I think that for me, the reason that I haven't shot much digital is that each project has a certain feel that I want to create and a certain effect, and I look at the locations before I shoot them, and there's certain cameras that can get me those results better than I think with digital. So I had seen the places where I was going to shoot in Mexico, and that camera was going to be able to move in a certain way that it would be the only camera that would be able to give me those effects. And so I chose to do it with that camera because it was the best one for the job. It's sort of like hiring somebody, it's hiring your camera. They all have a very different feel, and and I think that the day that the look that I'm going for the project that I'm working on, if the best one to do it is a digital camera, I'll take it. I think that's part of my obsession with the human body in general. Painting, I would always try to start with anything that wasn't a person, just to break my patterns a little bit, and somehow it would end up looking like a human body, or I would end up drawing a person. And so the series that I did on surrealism, it gave me something where I could work with anything, and so I could incorporate people, and and body parts. I guess I just use the body as a form, as a line, and I like the lines that it makes. And so you can see that pretty clearly in the surrealist series, where it's just the legs or it's just an arm hanging from some place, and it just becomes an element. But I just think that the body is beautiful. So being here in New York, I think that there's so many people that are involved in art, or that are interested in exploring it and thinking about it and showing it and analyzing it, and so many people doing so many different types of art or art forms, that you end up meeting people that look at your work. And so I guess that New York it was sort of like making a website, but just having the network of people that I was able to meet here, my work started having many viewers, and it started getting out there. I ended up meeting you. I ended up getting, my first solo show only a few months after I graduated. Being able to go to Russia, this just all came from having lived in New York, from having met people here, from having studied here. Because actually a lot of the people that have seen my work hasn't always been just through my site. It's been somebody told them, and then they came around here and they saw some of it, or somebody had them in their desktop. And so it's been, I guess it has definitely made my work go around. How many eyes see it, and then the eyes that see it as well are important. And New York City has people with a lot of good eyes to see artwork.